Welcome to Byte-Sized Tech. All right, let's talk about AI. I mean, it is everywhere, right? There's so much hype, so much money flying around, it's almost impossible to keep track. So today, we're going to cut right through all that noise. We're going to take a hard look at the real state of AI, what's actually going on from the biggest boardrooms all the way down to the phone in your pocket. So here's the plan. We're starting with the bonkers money train, the AI gold rush. Then we'll hit you with a serious reality check. I'm talking a 95% reality check. From there, we'll see where AI is actually showing up at work and in our lives, peek into the future with agents and robots, and then wrap up by looking at the actual nuts and bolts, the physical stuff this whole digital world depends on. Let's get into it. All right, first up, the money. And look, we're not talking about big numbers. We are talking about mind-bending, almost unbelievable amounts of cash. This isn't just a tech trend anymore. It's a full-blown economic gold rush, with valuations that are just, wow, hard to even wrap your head around. Okay, let's try to put this into perspective. Take a look at this number. $12.3 billion. That's how much the private equity firm Thoma Bravo just dropped to buy a company called Dayforce. It's basically an HR software company. This is one of the biggest deals of its kind, and it's a huge, huge bet that AI is about to completely change how businesses run.
And it's not just big companies buying other big companies. You've got private AI outfits like Databricks hitting valuations north of $100 billion. Let that sink in. These aren't even public companies yet. It just goes to show you, investors are looking at them and thinking their potential for growth is basically infinite.
And listen to this from the CEO of Databricks, Ali Goldsey. He just says, it's been insane. And he's not just talking about the money on paper. He's talking about a flat-out war for talent. He says they're seeing these absolutely crazy offers being thrown at the top AI people. It's creating this constant churn. The best minds are jumping from company to company, chasing these once-in-a-lifetime paychecks. It's a total arms race for brainpower. Okay, so you've got all this money, all this top talent, everything's amazing, right? Well, hold on. This is where our story takes a sharp turn. Because behind all that hype, there's a massive disconnect, a huge gap between all the money being poured in and the actual results coming out. 95%. Just let that number sit there for a second. In a field that's supposed to be exploding, what on earth could 95% represent? Well, it turns out it represents the single biggest problem everyone in AI is dealing with right now. Yeah. It means that 95% of companies that tried out a generative AI pilot project saw zero return on their investment. Zilch, nada. This finding from a recent MIT study basically sent a shockwave through the industry. It confirmed what a lot of people were quietly thinking. Making money with this stuff is really hard. Everyone feels like they have to be in the game, but proving it's actually worth the cost, that's the real challenge. So what gives? Why is it so hard? Well, the CEO of Runway, a big AI creative company, has a pretty good theory. He says we're in this messy adjustment period. You can't just hand someone a new AI tool and say, go. It's not like upgrading your version of Word. He says you literally have to, and I quote, rewire your brain. You have to completely change how you think about your work. It's a lot like when the cloud first came along and companies had to totally restructure how they operated. And that kind of change, it just takes time.
But here's the thing, and this is super important. This probably doesn't mean AI is a bust. In fact, if you talk to analysts who are around for the dot-com era, they'll tell you this feels very familiar. You had the huge boom, then the bust, where a ton of companies went under, but that whole messy period was what laid the groundwork for the tech giants we have today. And the theory is, that's exactly where we are with AI right now, in the messy trial and error beginning.
Okay, so if 95% of these projects are flopping, what about the other 5%? Where is AI actually working? Let's zoom in on where this tech is making a real difference, both in big business and, for regular people like you and me. It seems to be landing in three main spots so far. You've got the creative world, where companies like Runway are changing the game for Hollywood filmmakers. Then there's the big business software. Remember that Dayforce deal? That's all about using AI to manage people in HR. And then there's the one we're all starting to see, consumer tech. Think Google weaving its Gemini AI right into your phone, trying to make it part of your everyday routine.
And man, is that consumer race heating up. Google just showed off how their Gemini AI isn't just another app you open. It's meant to be a proactive assistant baked right into the Android OS itself. This puts a ton of pressure on Apple, right? Because, let's be honest, Siri's starting to feel pretty old school, very reactive. Everyone's waiting to see what Apple does next, because the race to build the ultimate AI sidekick is officially on. So what's next? If the AI we have now is basically a tool that we tell what to do, the next big leap is about systems that, well, that act on their own. We're talking about autonomous agents and, yep, we're going there, humanoid robots. I love this quote for explaining what an AI agent is. The Databricks CEO says to imagine having 100 interns that you can just unleash to work on a problem. Instead of one person trying one thing, you have 100 digital interns trying 100 different things all at the same time. Then you just pick the best outcome. The speed and scale of that kind of experimentation is something humans just can't do. But here comes that reality check again. These early agents, they can have an error rate of like 30%. And the question he asks is perfect. Would you hire an intern who makes completely crazy mistakes a third of the time? No way. So the biggest challenge here is just making them reliable. He thinks we're still years away, maybe 5 years, before these things are dependable enough to really make an impact everywhere. And then you have the robots themselves. A global humanoid robot race is definitely heating up. Projections from Morgan Stanley show China pulling way ahead in terms of the sheer number of robots, probably because of their manufacturing power. But the US is expected to hold the lead in what might be the most important part, the AI models, the actual brains that make these robots smart. So it's shaping up to be this classic battle of hardware versus software, but on a global scale. Okay, let's bring it all home with our last section. Because underneath all the cool software, the crazy money, and the sci-fi ideas, this entire AI revolution is built on something very real, a physical foundation. And that foundation has some serious limits. It really all boils down to 3 physical things. First, power, plain and simple electricity. Getting enough of it is now the #1 roadblock to building more data centers. Second, chips. We're just not making enough of the high-end semiconductors to meet demand, and that's going to be a problem for years. And third, the data centers themselves, these giant air-conditioned warehouses that are basically the physical homes for AI. So, how much is all this infrastructure going to cost? Well, the CEO of OpenAI, Sam Altman, recently threw out a number. And it wasn't millions or even billions. He said they're expecting to spend trillions of dollars. Trillions? I mean, that's not company money. That's like country-level spending. It just shows you the monumental scale of what needs to be built. And that brings us right back to the central question, doesn't it? We have this incredible promise of AI, this vision for a completely different future. But to get there, we have to build a foundation that costs trillions of dollars and solve these huge real-world problems with power and manufacturing. So the big question is the payoff worth that monumental cost? That right there is the multi-trillion-dollar question that defines the state of AI today. If you enjoyed the episode, please like, comment, share, and subscribe.